Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the WOW signal, 72 seconds of possible alien contact. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction. Not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. On August 15, 1977, at 10:16 p.m. EDT, a radio telescope at Ohio State University received a signal from space that was so unusual that the astronomer who noticed it circled the printout and wrote "Wow" in the margin. The signal lasted 72 seconds. The maximum time a signal from a specific point in space could be detected with the Big Ear telescope's observation window. It was never received again. The WOW signal remains the strongest candidate for extraterrestrial communication in the history of SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. It had the characteristics that SETI scientists predicted an alien signal would have. It was narrowband, concentrated in a very narrow frequency band. It came from a specific point in the constellation Sagittarius, and it was at the 21-centimeter hydrogen line, the frequency that ETI proponents have long argued would be chosen for interstellar communication as a universal cosmic constant. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the expanding frontier of unexplained cosmic phenomena, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Space is not quiet. The universe is filled with electromagnetic signals, from the cosmic microwave background radiation left over from the Big Bang to the steady roar of stellar activity at every wavelength of the electromagnetic spectrum. Against this noise, radio astronomers look for something specific: signals that are narrowband, repeating and structured, the signatures of intelligence rather than nature. Natural processes tend to produce broadband emissions spread across many frequencies. A narrowband signal at a single precise frequency suggests something deliberately tuned, and deliberate tuning implies a tuner. The search for such signals has been ongoing since 1960, when Frank Drake pointed a radio telescope at two nearby stars and listened. In the 60-plus years since, the instrumentation has grown enormously in sensitivity, and the sky survey coverage has expanded from a handful of stars to millions. The verdict, so far, is ambiguous. No confirmed, repeating signal from an extraterrestrial intelligence has been received, but several anomalous signals have been detected, investigated, and not definitively explained, including at least one that, had it been received today, would meet every criterion the scientific community had previously agreed would constitute first contact. The silence of the cosmos is not total, it is merely inscrutable. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the WOW signal, 72 seconds of possible alien contact, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The WOW signal was detected by astronomer Jerry Amon, a volunteer researcher at Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Telescope, who was reviewing printouts of radio telescope data collected on August 15, 1977. He circled a sequence of alphanumeric characters reading 6 equage 5 and wrote WOW in the margin, giving the signal its name. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the 6 equage 5 notation describes the signal's intensity over time. The telescope's output was recorded as letters and numbers representing signal strength. The sequence shows the signal rising to peak intensity, U equals approximately 30 times background, maintaining it briefly and falling, exactly the pattern expected from a point-like cosmic source passing through the telescope's beam. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine the WOW signal was at 1,456 megahertz, very close to the 21 centimeter hydrogen line at 1,420. 405 megahertz. Hydrogen is the most common element in the universe, and 1,420 megahertz has long been proposed by SETI researchers as a cosmic watering hole frequency where communicating civilizations might logically agree to broadcast. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, the signal has never been detected again despite numerous follow-up observations. Multiple searches, some lasting weeks, and using more sensitive equipment than the Big Ear telescope, have been conducted at the same sky coordinates without finding the signal. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of, in 2016, astronomer Antonio Paris proposed that the WOW signal was caused by 2 comets, 266P/Christensen and P/2008 Y2 Gibbs, which were in the vicinity of the signal's sky coordinates in 1977 and which can emit hydrogen at the 21 cm frequency. This explanation was tested and rejected by most SETI researchers. The signal was too narrowband for a cometary source, and the comet data Paris used was questioned. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. The Big Ear telescope that detected the signal was demolished in 1998 to make way for a golf course expansion. No equivalent follow-up observation with the original equipment is therefore possible. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the WOW signal, 72 seconds of possible alien contact. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that the WOW signal was a radio transmission from an extraterrestrial civilization that happened to be detected during the 72-second window when the Big Ear telescope could observe its sky position. The signal has not been detected again because the transmission was brief or intermittent, or because we have not been looking in exactly the right direction at the right time. This is the most exciting interpretation and the one that motivates continued SETI. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the WOW signal was a natural astrophysical phenomenon, possibly a magnetoburst, a maser emission from an astronomical source, or a phenomenon not yet identified that mimicked the characteristics associated with an artificial signal. Natural sources can occasionally produce narrowband emissions at frequencies consistent with the WOW signal's characteristics. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the WOW signal was a one-time terrestrial signal reflected from space, a radar pulse or other Earth-origin broadcast reflected by a space object back to Earth. This would explain both the signal and its non-repetition. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the WOW signal, 72 seconds of possible alien contact, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes the narrowband character of the WOW signal is the most compelling evidence against a natural origin. Natural astrophysical sources typically produce broadband emissi. On- and narrowband signals are more consistent with artificial transmission. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented the signal's pattern of rising and falling intensity matches what is expected from a fixed cosmic source moving through the telescope beam due to Earth's rotation, consistent with a true astronomical source rather than terrestrial interference. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed the failure to redetect the signal after extensive follow-up observation is consistent with either a non-repeating natural event or a brief or intermittent transmission. It does not discriminate between natural and artificial origin. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the WOW signal 72 seconds of possible alien contact. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The WOW signal has motivated decades of SETI observation. SETI at Home, the Breakthrough Listen Initiative, and multiple professional radio telescope programs have been influenced by the possibility that signals like it exist and can be detected. No comparable signal has been detected in 46 years of searching. The 50th anniversary of the WOW signal in 2027 will prompt renewed attention and probably new searches. Jerry Amon, who wrote the WOW notation, has maintained throughout his life that the signal may be the most important datum ever recorded by astronomy, and that we don't know what it was. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the WOW signal, 72 seconds of possible alien contact, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, assess the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of WOW signal ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process, and the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. if you came as a true believer. We hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.